Sure, there have been many changes, but it's feeling like now we are clear about what we want to do, and I really want to show you step by step how we got there. So some of it will be what you read already in the video, saw in the video, but it's grown really. TLC was doing this work for abandoned babies, finding their families, working in this small space, and now it feels like we've grown into something much bigger. So wherever you see these logos, it's some kind of work that we're doing. On our social media, you'll see we have even some extra ones, but these are the ones that you're probably more familiar with, except maybe the food one, because that's new. But we are living in a very chaotic city at the moment and country. There's a lot of confusion, corruption, very poor services available, so things feel very insecure. And we're really trying hard to build in a sense of security, almost like a parallel social service, almost like a parallel service that the government should be doing but is not. So we are now offering all these little pieces that people need in their lives to help them be stronger. Everyone okay so far? Okay. Okay, so this is just the journey of how we've come to be. It started actually 2016 with the Lumos Foundation. The Lumos Foundation is J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter, her foundation. Its goal is across the world to close down children's homes and orphanages. She believes every child should be in a family, which I agree with, but their method is to remove children's homes as an option. In the first world, that might be okay, in places where the government provides subsidies, where the children can access services, that might work. In our country, it's a disaster because there is just no social support for children in foster care, so it makes them very vulnerable. So this was started 2016, and the government signed their first agreement. Now they have signed others, but their first one was to stop babies, infants, under 3 years being put into children's homes. So making sure babies went into families. Again, a good idea in theory, but in practice, very, very difficult to do well. So what happened from 2016 onwards is the government started to put deliberate obstacles in the way of organizations like ours. So it started off with being delayed in funding. So they would say they were going to fund you, but then you would have to wait 3 or 4 months without that funding, and that would create a destabilizing effect in the organization because you couldn't pay salaries, you couldn't meet your bills. It became very difficult to predict how you were going to go forward. So that was a big problem, and then in 2022 they actually just refused to sign the service level agreements, which is the contract between the government and the children's homes. The government just didn't provide them, so you just couldn't get any funding at all. It was really bad. Then they started to find other reasons to make it difficult. So they said they would only fund fewer of the services that children's home needed to provide. So where we used to be able to get, let's say, a social worker salary and some caregiver salaries, now they said no, the caregivers must look after 18 children instead of 6. So you have to let go of 2 staff members to do that. But then the quality of the care declines, the children get more ill, you have all these consequences of this kind of tactic. It was a really terrible time. We felt a little bit like we were going crazy, that the logic of looking after children was becoming so compromised. It was really difficult. And now to the point that even places like Impilo, which most of you went through, have been put on a list where their registration will probably not be renewed. So they will no longer be able to function as a protection organization doing adoptions, because the government says they're going to do all the adoptions, but they don't believe in adoption. So the children are going to end up stuck in the system, and that's really what's worrying us. So the government has this perspective, but so do international governments. You will have seen for yourself that there's almost an anti-adoption idea in governments now, where they don't want to bring children from other countries in, and they make it very difficult. So that's also having an impact on where the options and opportunities for placing children lie. We can no longer place to Germany, we can no longer place to Holland, we can no longer place to Austria. We only just barely getting children into Denmark. It's very, very difficult. So whilst we support adoption as one of the options that children need, especially abandoned children or children who have been separated, we recognize that if adoption is not an option and keeping children in children's homes is not an option, then the government is pushing foster care, but it doesn't work well in South Africa. So I want to show you why. So this is a table of comparison. On the one side, you can see what it looks like in South Africa. On the one, it looks more or less what AI says Germany looks like. So I recognize there might be some challenges there. But in South Africa, you only have to be 18 to be a foster mother or a foster parent. 18. How many of you have got an 18-year-old that you would want to have fostering a child? Right? It's not logical. It's not safe for children, especially South African 18-year-olds who are struggling themselves to figure out how to survive. I feel like that's really putting children at risk. In Germany, apparently it can be 25, unless it's a family member, then it can be 21. In South Africa, you can have up to 6 children in foster care. So they will place up to 6 children with you, and they can even be in the same age range, which means you could have 6 children under 3, for example, which is just like you're asking for children to be damaged in that context. In South Africa, the government supplies a grant of €50.92, which is less than the food poverty line in South Africa. So we can't even feed a person on €50.92. We need a bit more than that, and that's just for food. In South Africa, they don't provide a clothing allowance. They don't provide respite care, which means that once you take that child on, there's no extra support. You don't have help. You can't go on holiday. You can't travel. Everything becomes very restricted. They don't give you tax benefits for having a child in foster care. You cannot access private health care, which means you have to rely on the state hospitals, which are already overburdened and undersupplied and undermaintained and understaffed. So already that child is compromised. Knowing, and you all know, children who are born from difficult circumstances, they need extra. They don't just need the bare minimum. They need more therapy. They need more interventions. They need more doctor's visits. And here now we have no access to that privately. If they need psychotherapy, which usually happens a bit later, they can have a maximum of 1 appointment a month, and only if it's urgent, because there's just not enough psychotherapists to meet the need. Foster families have to go for training, but there's no standardized curriculum. So you can attend a training and it teaches you to not let your child put their fingers in the plugs, but they don't teach you how to deal with trauma and how to discipline, and there's no active parenting skills. And the social workers are not required to supervise you unless there's a crisis and you have to seek out their help. They don't come and check that the children are okay, which you can see. This is just a recipe for disaster in a country like ours. We are looking at a massive challenge in keeping children safe if foster care is our chosen route. So we looked at this because many of the children who were removed in August were placed into foster care the government was like, oh, well, that's an improvement in their life situation, and we know for a fact that was not true. That was absolutely just not true. Remember, the other problem with foster care is it's temporary. So families have the option to say, well, I'll look after the child, and when it doesn't suit me anymore, I will put it back in the foster care system. So families will take an infant, right? So the government says, let's put all the babies into foster care. So we take a newborn baby into our family and we love it and look after it. And as it gets closer to time for school, we start to see, oh, but this child isn't going to be a genius. He's going to need extra special learning support, and it's going to cost money for medication. And suddenly the family are like, oh no, well, this isn't what we signed up for. So we return the child to the system and it ends up in another family. Now it's got an emotional trauma. that family has behavioral issues and they're like, oh no, this isn't what we signed up for, we'll put it back into the system, until they end up in institutions again, but institutions for children with conduct disorder or psychological illness or crime. Like, it's just such a back to front thinking. It's so short-term solution thinking. So as a team at TLC, we looked at this and we were basically being asked to be supportive of this idea, and we just couldn't do it. We just couldn't see how this is going to help build the world we want to live in. And at the end of the day, that's really why we do the work we do. We're aiming to build a world that's better than this, where children can have more than this. So we had to look at our options, and we decided, if we looked at what brings children into the care system, why do children come into foster care? Why do they get abandoned? What are those root causes? We had learned a lot through the years of doing TLC of what those things were that make people vulnerable. Why do people feel the need to leave their babies under bushes and in bathrooms and places? When we unpacked that, we realized that actually our mothers program that we had already been running, lots of the work we had already done, had taught us that actually with a bit of support, the mothers would be the best place to keep these children safe. If we can help the mothers see a future with their children and know that their needs will be met, we won't have to go through this as a experience. And so that was really the learning, was that for years already, this was in 2003, we looked after Portia. And I know you all already know this, but it's important to say, many of the children that you are parenting came from a time when our country was in an absolute crisis, where mothers were not available. They had passed away or they were in such dire straits that there was no way to give the support needed to keep them with their children. Portia was one of those examples. She was a young mommy, 17, infected with HIV when she fell pregnant and very quickly deteriorated with her health, delivered her baby at 7.5 months, so the baby was prem, excluded from her family because HIV had such terrible stigma. She had nowhere to live, and she was going to die alone if we didn't say, come to TLC. And so although it wasn't the primary work of what we did, we met these mothers. We saw how desperate they were to just try to survive. And as an organism, remember, we're primed for life. We want to survive. And sometimes that means our children become a threat to our own survival. And so we have to walk that sort of carefully and very supportively for mothers to understand that it's not that they're bad people, it's not that they are hateful, it's that they're desperate and they're just trying to find a way to survive another day. And sometimes for them that looks like leaving their babies somewhere else. And so in Portia's case, we were able to bring her home with us. We looked after her for about 4 months before she did pass. There was no access to antiretrovirals in those years with us. So she passed away with us, and her little baby then actually did end up going back to her original birth family because she was not HIV infected. It was one of those blessings of the time where the babies have their own bloodstream, and so if you're lucky, the birth process doesn't infect you and you're okay. And so many prematurely born babies, although they have prematurity, they don't have HIV because they're small and they come quickly and without trauma. So just an interesting thing. So the learning that we took for the years of running TLC helped us to form in our minds, how do we go upstream rather than catching the babies after they've been separated? How do we go and find out what's pushing them into the river in the first place? And this was part of that exercise. Do you remember Ellen? Some of you may have met Ellen. This was a picture of Ellen when she was 13 years and 8 months old, and she was 8 months pregnant. And she had grown up on a farm in one of the more rural provinces in South Africa, where her family had for 3 generations grown avocados and mangoes on a commercial farm. And in South Africa, because of the apartheid and the problems there, people in her family were paid half in money and half in alcohol. Mm-hmm. So her family had alcohol addiction issues. The social setting was really not great for a future. Her life was going to just be living that same cycle again and again, because you're trapped in poverty. Poverty is when people say you can escape poverty, it's really not that easy. It takes a lot of effort. So the farm owner where Ellen lived was obviously a white South African man, and his son found Ellen one day on her way home from school, and he raped her. And she ended up pregnant with this baby, and now because they knew the baby would most likely be fair-skinned, she was basically threatened. Her life was threatened because she was bearing the evidence of a crime. Remember, at 13, she didn't have any idea what was happening to her body. Once her body started to change and the baby started to grow, only then did her family realize something must have happened. And so they were the ones who then intervened. They sent her to Johannesburg, and then she had a problem. Because she was a child, she couldn't go into a crisis pregnancy center, because that's for over 18s. You have to be adult. And she couldn't go into a children's home because she was pregnant. So she was stuck in the space with nowhere to go. And TLC was an unusual space, and we had a bit more freedom because we were family run to make decisions that the government wouldn't have approved of. So we said, look, come, we'll look after you. So we brought Ellen home. And the thing about Ellen, and this is the thing we're learning about the mothers, is the mothers who are serious about making life better for themselves and their children, they will take every opportunity you give them. They need a bit of safety, they need to gather themselves, but then when the opportunities are there and they realize that they're safe to make those choices, they will grab them with both hands. So Ellen did that. From the time she came in and we were able to just settle her for the first few months, she started to learn English really passionately, like focusing on how to learn English. She started school again. She had done very limited schooling, so by the time she was feeling well enough, we were able to put her back into school at TLC, managed to finish her schooling. Now she's done 2 diplomas in Montessori. This was Teresa after she was born. So let me go back to that part. So when Ellen was ready to deliver her baby, she had now been with us for about 4 months. And she said, look, I don't want to go back to that life. That life is going to suck me in and I'm going to be stuck there. And I don't want to let go of my baby either. I feel like, you know, she's been in lots of ways a gift to me by bringing me out of that reality to this one. So we did what we call, and what is science is calling allo parenting. It's a community model of parenting where we parented the mother and we parented the baby until the mother could take more responsibility, and then she could take over the role of that, which happened when Teresa was about 15. Actually, it was a long journey to get there. But now Ellen has finished 2 diplomas in Montessori education. She's gotten just now, last week or so, her driver's license, and she runs our Montessori school now in our new model. She's running that. Earning money. She has her own house that somebody has helped us to fund with Tommy. She and Tommy live together, and that's her daughter Teresa now, who's studying psychology at the South African University, and they will never again live that life that they were removed from. They will have other opportunities and their destiny will look different. These are the lessons that motivated us to say, we can do this differently. We can try save these children from the break, save these children from the constant foster care cycle, and we can do this differently. So we started with that in mind. We recognized that if you can help, this is called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Some of you who have studied in social sciences would have come across this. What the science shows is that what people need in order to reach their own potential, what people need to find their purpose and their passion, is safety. And that safety starts with physiological safety, food, air, water, and then obviously a safe place to live. When those 2 things are in place, then you can start to reach out, to build community, to build relationships. And ironically, that part helps to extra support your sense of safety, that felt sense of safety. And then after that, we can start to say, well, I'm good at these things. I have gifts in this place, and start to rise above the day-to-day survival. So this is one of our mothers. Her name is Sibusisiwe, and those are her children. Polite is the young one, higher up, and Asanda is the bottom one there. And she is just like that. She's 22. Asanda is 4, so she would have been 18 when she had Asanda, and then Polite is 2. And she's such a naturally good mom. Like, she really loves her boys, she does her best, but they struggle. She can't put food on the table every day. She's really struggles to keep them safe at night. She's doing her best to find employment, but because she's foreign, she can only find a little bit of employment here and a little bit there, and then there are many days in between where there's no income. So by coming to our centre every day, so this is where they live, it's that one part that she lives in. But by coming to our centre every day, when they arrive in the morning, they can have breakfast. So she has food, but the children have food too. They spend time with us first as a group in community, where we remind everybody that we're in this together, that we're working together for something. And then the children go to their classes, and the mothers spend some time with us, and we deal with their trauma, their stories, their struggles. What is it that today is at the top of their mind, so that we can calm down their nervous system, get them to relax into the fact that we are holding them in this safe space, so that when they go at the end of the day, they are better able to meet the needs of their children. Remember, this is always about the children. If she can go home feeling like, okay, she's had enough to eat, she's been soothed, she's been empowered in some way, at the end of the day, it doesn't look quite so scary to go home to a place like that, where she feels like, okay, well, maybe tomorrow there's a bit more hope, there's something on the horizon. So a big part of what we do now is food, just food. As you saw in that table, we need about 51 euros a month just to feed a person. And these mothers, they need feeding. If we don't feed them and we don't feed their children, there's no way we're going to get up that pyramid. There's no way. So obviously we don't have the income to provide everything, but we're growing a lot of our own food now in a very sort of structured way. We have 2 greenhouses and quite a big shade installation. We grow all the basics: spinach, cabbage, onions, tomatoes, potatoes, cauliflower, everything we can. The mothers help us do that. And now what we're trying to do, everything that we put in place, we're trying to see and what. So we always ask our question, so we're going to grow vegetables and what? So we grow vegetables, we feed our mothers, and now we are learning how to process those vegetables into something that adds value, which then we can sell in the local markets, and we can get that income back, and then the mothers are benefited from that. So we've got a 50-50 split arrangement with the mothers, whether it's from what we produce in the garden, in the kitchen, with their handicrafts. We take 50% to run the village, and we give 50% to them. So they're earning an income to pay their rent, to pay for transport. Most of our families earn, as a whole family, less than 50 euros a month, and out of that they have to pay for their rent, they have to pay for transport, they have to pay for food, schools, clothes. It's unmanageable. So we're trying now to find ways that we can boost their income and not have to employ them, because of course no one wants to pay for salaries. So we're trying to find ways where we can just boost the whole family, but practically with real life investment. We have this fantastic thing. This was such an exciting thing that we did that's worked so well. So we call it our share barn, and it's a bit like a food bank. All the donations that we get, we put into this place, and some of it is, you'll see in the back behind the lady, there's some packets of rice and maize meal and some baked beans, and what gets donated to us we put into individual packaging here. And to encourage the mothers to invest in themselves, by coming to the centre in the morning, they will do activities through the day where they earn tokens. And at the end of the day, those tokens can be exchanged for things out of the barn. So it doesn't cost us actual money, it's been donated items, but it is motivating them to invest in themselves. And it gives us a gap to talk to them, to grow them, to teach them things, to encourage them, and they don't feel like they feel like they're getting something out of it, that is value to it. And the more we do that, the more they participate, and we're building slowly like that. But this has been working really well, and it's been motivating to me to see that this little bit of hope at the end of the day really keeps them connected to the village. And it's run by one of our mothers. This lady in the corner It's a phenomenal woman. Her name is Mama Chisomo. Her real name's Jeanette, but her child is Chisomo. And in the African tradition, you're called by Mama and then the name of your child. So she's Mama Chisomo. And she manages this whole barn. We just give her what has arrived overnight or the day before, and she packs it all out. She decides how many beads or tokens it's worth, and she keeps a book. And she's like a little store manager, and it's giving her a real sense of dignity, of purpose, and she's wonderful. She fixes shoes, so a lot of the donations we get require a bit of tailoring or a bit of repair. She does all of that. She's been a huge asset to the village. But of course, so one of the big things we've learned is that if you don't have a safe place to call home, very hard to have a long-term view of your life. Everything is very short-term. You really are stuck just trying to figure out, are we going to be safe tomorrow? Will I have to find a new place to stay? Most of the mothers that we have live in informal settlements, which is illegal, like squatter camps. And it's so vulnerable there because the government can decide that they're going to move you in a heartbeat. They don't have to give you notice. You can arrive home and suddenly you don't have a home. Obviously the communities are chaotic, so there's a lot of crime and there's a lot of politics that go on, and people don't feel safe there. So over time, I think in my long-term vision, I would really love to have a way to provide for the mothers to have a safe place to stay, even if it's like a 3-year tenure or something, where you just know for 3 years we've got a safe place to stay, and I can not have that worry on my shoulders for now. I'll try and do all the other things so that we can build ourselves out. So this mother from, she's from Uganda, and she's the one who needs to go home in December. But to go home means she needs skills, she needs material ways to survive. So she was a journalist before she came to South Africa, found herself here, was unable to find employment, ended up with a boyfriend, had a baby, her life fell apart, and she got trapped in this cycle. And now we've been building her and building her. She's got an online profile as a journalist. She's trying to, build content so that when she goes back to Uganda, she has some hope of an income, and her children will go with her and they will be able to settle there in a way that's much more sustainable. Otherwise, you deport people because they're foreign, but they have no way to survive, so then they just come back or they find other ways to. So we're really trying to break that cycle. So this was obviously part of the Mother's Hope program. The mothers lived with us, but as I mentioned, we lost our funding for this program in February. We used to have a big donor who funded our school costs, the costs for our older children. We call them now our TLC legacy children, the older ones, and the Mothers program. And in January they said that they were stopping their funding in February, which left me with a really big hole in the income. So we've had to decide, look, having the mothers live on site with us is very difficult. It requires so much more than we have at the moment. But over time, I would like to get back to some kind of a form or format of that, even if it's not on site, but it's a communal piece of land that the mothers can stay together and support each other in a more village kind of way. I think we'd like to get to there eventually. Oops. Okay, sorry. So this is around the felt sense of safety. I think many of you who have children who have had trauma and experienced that early trauma recognize that logically we know we're safe, but actually feeling safe is not the same thing, right? So those of you who struggle with anxiety will know what I'm talking about. My brain can say, yes, no, I'm fine, but my heart is still and not feeling well. So a lot of what we do is the rhythm and the routine and the soothing and the expression of people and finding a way for them to tap into this felt sense of safety. How do you feel safe? What helps you feel safe? How do you start to breathe more in rhythm? And so we use music and movement and mindfulness and things to try and build in them this felt sense of safety. Once the mothers feel safe and well enough, then the emotions can settle and we can start to teach them
We run several workshops a week on different content that they've asked for, or content that we know can see is a need for them. And we try to build and link everything we're teaching into their own lives and into their life experience, taking them that little bit further along as they go, and really building connections with each other through the sharing of stories, through looking for common ground, finding ways that we are actually all the same together. And it's a wonderful thing to see those relationships deepening and building. We find that they start always from a place of really low self-esteem and fear and anxiety. And so we work really hard to help them be encouraged. We find them mentors and partner them up so that the confidence and the courage to try new things and to explore new opportunities can be encouraged. It's really, really scary for mummies when their whole life is survival based. To add anything new or to try anything new looks very scary to them. And so we really hold their hands and work hard to help them be open to some new opportunities and new experiences. And we can't do it alone. And so we really look forward to having you reach out and ask us more questions. I'm available at any point on WhatsApp or email. We can have a video call if you like, or we can walk through some more of these concepts and philosophies. We really are raising and building this village together, and we are trying really hard to build the world we all want to live in and that we want our children to have and inherit. So join us and engage, and we look forward to chatting with you again soon. Remember that if we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. We are all connected in some way or another. We are all part of this global social fabric, and it's important to remember that we are who we are because of the others in our life, and so we really do believe that. We've walked a very similar journey to many of the adoptive families. It's not all been roses and sunshine. And the older our children get, the more deeply we feel those wounds that happened before us. And a lot of those wounds sit in a place where there was no language, and so the children can't express what's upsetting them or can't say why they're feeling this disconnect. But we can help, and a lot of the workshops that we run are around that. So please feel free to reach out at any point. We would love to engage with you. Take care. Bye-bye.